Hi, everybody. I'm joining you again from my hotel room in Belgium here to talk a little bit about who we are at Signum and about, what we do and why we do it. I'm going to start with a little bit of our founding story, where Signum came from and why I started this whole thing anyway. Some of you might have heard some of this story before, but I bet many won't. And I think it's an important context for understanding why we offer the programs that we do at Signum, what it is that we're like trying to achieve, what it is we're offering at Signum University. So of course, my podcast was kind of the origin of things, and my podcast itself started when I was a new professor, and I was being pressured, of course, to publish lest I perish. You know how that works. And I had done some publishing. I published my first article on Tolkien, and I was working on some other stuff, but I was really dissatisfied. It all really kind of starts with my being dissatisfied with the publishing world. And what I was disappointed by was that I was frustrated by the fact that all this work I was doing to publish stuff was, well, I mean, to put it loosely, never going to be read by anybody. I mean, I knew it would be read by some people, but the whole way in which scholarly publication, academic publication was this closed circle, like the only people who are almost allowed to access. I mean, it's like priced way outside the range, and no casual person's gonna, no casual fan or interested person is gonna buy this stuff off the street. You can't; it's too expensive. So that means the only people who could afford to buy it are research libraries, and so the only people who were ever going to read what I wrote were going to be a handful of other scholars, and then a slightly larger handful of future college and graduate students who, for whom my article would be no more than one of a long stack of homework that they have to get through, right? So anyway, it felt like a depressing world, you know what I mean? And especially since I was writing on Tolkien. And I was beginning to do a bunch of work on Tolkien, and I'm like, I bet that there are a bunch of people out there who would be interested in learning about Tolkien and in reading what I have to say about Tolkien. Why should I just, publish it? Which again, even the word publish felt to me ironic, like it's not being made public, it's being made private. It's the privatization of work, not the publication of it. So I decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to do things differently. I'm gonna take the stuff that I do and I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to put it out there. And I couldn't decide at first, did I want to make it a podcast or a blog? That was a blog originally. Blogging was kind of the big thing. This was back in like 2007, we're talking about here. Um, but podcasts were brand new. I was like, hey, and when I discovered about it, I was like, hey, so there's this new thing where like you can record audio of yourself and put it out there. That sounds great. Like because I was a teacher, so that was more like I felt more like teaching, right, than maintaining a blog did. So by started it. As far as I know, first Tolkien podcast that was out there. Um, and the initial reaction to my podcast was quite astounding to me. I was really blown away. And what I was blown away by was not like, I mean, it became enormously popular, but that's not it. Okay, it wasn't about like popular, it was not fame or popularity. What blew me away was the quality of reaction that I was getting from people, the kinds of things that people were saying. And those things were primarily that they were amazed at the opportunity to learn. So many people, I got emails from so many people in those first days. You have to remember back, podcasts have really changed so many things. Now through podcasts, you can now get access to, you can like learn about anything you want to learn about, right? I mean, anything you're interested in, you can get a whole lot of it through podcasts. Before podcasts, not so much. There was really, this was, of course, also before YouTube had taken off and all that kind of thing. So I mean, it meant that there was almost nothing out there. The emails I was getting from people back in those days, again, this was like 2008, 2009. The emails I was getting from people were things like, I feel like I'm using a part of my brain I haven't used since, I graduated from college and stuff. Like the opportunity to really kind of dig into stuff, to go deep into this subject that fascinated them. And that was, of course, compounded by the fact that many of them, even when they were in college, had not been able to study Tolkien seriously, because, in the for the earlier generation. That is, before English departments became desperate and unprincipled, they, sorry, I'll explain that in a second. They used to look down their noses at Tolkien. Like that was a pronounced thing among English departments. And so very few of them, English departments, would allow the teaching of Tolkien and fantasy literature and other such frivolous material. So most people didn't have the opportunity to study it in college. My crack about desperate and unprincipled. Of course, as the humanities has been more and more marginalized, English departments have been desperate for any way of bringing in more enrollments, right, to try to justify their existence. And so, gosh, guess what? It's much more possible nowadays to study things that people actually want to read than it used to be back in the day when they were like, no, you will read T.S. Eliot and you'll like it. Sorry, I'm joking. And I like T.S. Eliot. Well, mostly. But anyway, I think you guys probably know what I'm referring to there. In any case, back to the reaction I was getting to the podcast. It was, I think if I could say, it was hunger, right? There was a hunger for more. People were so, um, it was like, it was like the effect of, how Sam describes, um, water on a wilted lettuce, right? Like plants perking up when you water them for the first time in a long time. That was like the impression that people kept giving me, and I was under siege for the first year or so of my podcast by people who are wanting more, wanting more episodes, wanting more things, and especially wanting the opportunities to do live discussions, to participate, and um, to do classes. Like, can we do classes together? Like, can you teach classes on Tolkien that we can all take? Um, it was it was inspiring. It really was to see. And so I took up the challenge, and that's the birth of Signum University. I started classes in the model that I was familiar with, the graduate school, right? I knew I couldn't start off at the undergraduate level because there's way too much involved with that, as far as hoops to jump through and such. So I started with the graduate program because that was simpler in the sense that we don't need like all the distribution requirements and stuff, right? So anyway, I started off with the grad school. Um, and our classes have always been awesome in the graduate school. It has been, the Signum Graduate School has been a delightful opportunity for people to go really deep, for people to take courses and learn, as they hadn't had the opportunity before. There's only been one downside over the years to our graduate program, and that has been not enough opportunity. That is, that it didn't meet the needs of enough people. There were too many people who are being left out of the joy that we were having in the graduate school, left out because they, graduate, like intensive master's level graduate courses were more than they could or really wanted to do. They wanted to engage, they wanted to learn, but they didn't need that. They didn't want that much depth, that much intensity, because it's a graduate program. It is intense. There's a lot of work that's required. You write like a real thesis, a master's thesis at the end, and it's a great deal. It's very rewarding. It's really fun, but it's a lot, right? And not everybody was there. That didn't really speak to everybody. Um, there were too many people who were being left out, as I say, of the joy sharing. And that, by the way, is endemic in higher education. Higher education these days tends to pay lots of attention to 18 to 22-year-olds, and some attention to people in specific, who have needs for specific graduate training, but not much for anybody else, right? And it was that desire to reach to reach the needs, to be able to help to share the joy of learning and thinking about Tolkien and languages and all these other things that we were doing in the grad school. It was that desire to make that more available to more people that led to us expanding our programs. And this, of course, is the origin of the space program. Through space, we wanted to give people the opportunity to learn for personal enrichment outside the strictures of a formal degree program. Um, I think certainly the American higher education system, and this is not different elsewhere that I've seen, um, it's too tied up in formal degrees, right? Why do you go to school? You go to school to get a degree. Why do you get a degree? You get a degree to get a job, right? And that whole cycle, right? This idea that there's no other purpose to learning than job training. Essentially, that learning equals job training. That's a really sad state of affairs, right? It's That feels like the decline of society, in fact, to me, right? What we wanted to do is give an opportunity for people just to learning, expanding what you know, going deeper, however deep you want to go, right? To like immerse yourself in the things that you're passionate about. This is like the most noble of hobbies, right? And we wanted to enable that. So, with the help of Rob Goslin, who has been part of the space program from its very conception, Rob and I set out to make the most student-focused educational program in the world, a program that would really be as responsive as possible to what people wanted to learn so that we could empower and enable people to learn all the stuff that they wanted to learn. Space has been amazing. There have been so many areas of study within space that have just grown out of student interest, things we weren't like planning on. This is not us like decreeing and kind of handing down. These are the things we're going to offer in space. But again, just responding to student requests and student demand, and that has been so much fun. Students indicate in BlackBerry what they want to learn, and we make it happen. And that has been so much fun. Space has been just a delight, both for students and for teachers, over the few years that we've now been running. But recently at Signum, we've continued expanding in some other ways, wanting to increase learning opportunities. The focus had always been at Signum on synchronous instruction. That is, being able to have online meetings with like the synchronous online classroom, right, has always been at the heart of what Signum has done, first in the grad school and then at Space. Now, of course, I've never stopped doing my podcast this whole time, which has become my weekly broadcasts. I now all of the all of the podcast material that I produce is stuff that I do during live sessions with people, of course, during the weeks, which is then recorded and posted as my podcast material. So there's always been that as a way, like, so people have always had that sort of material asynchronously available to them. So there's been that as well as the synchronous classroom experience that we've had. But I saw another chance in which we could increase people's opportunities, and in a lot of ways, this really went back to the origin, to the beginning. Remember where I told you where this whole not only Signum itself, but where the Tolkien Professor podcast began. And that was with my frustrations with the publishing industry, especially the academic publishing industry. Um, and I've been thinking for a while about like what if we could move into this other space, like we've got where you could we have programs, the graduate program in space, where you can take classes synchronously and be involved in an online classroom, and that's really awesome. And I've got this asynchronous material, my weekly broadcasts that I'm producing all the time. But what if there's a spot in the middle in which we could allow for yet more engagement with people, and in a way which not only is going to be educational, right? It's going to enable people to continue to dive deeply into the stuff that they love, but also has some implications for the publishing world as well. What if we could do a Signum take on publication as well, and facilitate the creation of premium content, books, high production videos, lecture content, um, content that will itself inspire and share joy with many. But what if we also provided an opportunity for involvement in that process for the people, so both for creators and for people who are not creators as well, to invite them into the creative process. Um, I think the publication world is largely broken. I don't think that's a very controversial statement. And self-publishing is not often very effective. It's possible, of course, everybody can do it, but again, it's not often very effective in terms of actually getting work to readers, right? Getting work to consumers. So we have built within our community an opportunity for writers to find readers, for new voices to find a platform, for academics to be able to reach an audience, like an actual audience of people who would be interested in what they have to say. That little dream of mine from many years ago. A place for readers and viewers, not just to be entertained and to learn, you can get that too, but also to be involved in that process. And all of this is what the collaboratory is. The model is really simple. You subscribe to the collaboratory and you can tailor that to how much you want to be involved. You can subscribe at the basic, the essential level, and you'll get access to all the material you can read and watch. And you can watch the lectures, you can watch the videos, you can get our audio commentaries on things. You can read the books and articles and things that are being produced. All that you can get with the basic subscription. Um, so, if you only have time to enjoy awesome content from fantastic creators and authors and scholars, you can do that. But what if you want to be involved? Do you want to be involved in works in progress? Do you want to see these books unfolding and be a beta reader for people and be giving input to authors as books are developing? You can do that too. Do you want to be a patron to established favorites and emerging artists, help to support them as they're continuing to produce the work that you love? You can support, writers and teachers and scholars and producers. You can do that too. This is about more sharing joy, providing more opportunities for people. And through all of these additions, the addition of space, the addition of the collaboratory, the development of my broadcasts, Signum has remained committed to providing the opportunity for serious academic training. Our graduate program has continued recently. In addition to our traditional degree program, we've begun to develop a new program, our Academic Mastery Program. The Academic Mastery Program enables students to obtain graduate level training that's highly customizable and flexible, tailored to your own learning needs and interests. It's This is something I mentioned before, my own frustration with the fact that, like, all learning is job training and all job training happens within the context of high priced and highly structured degree programs. Um, and um, that's been a frustration for me. Um, I think that so one thing I would point out is that at Signum, our whole approach to serious academic training is intended to be a kind of corrective to mainstream higher education. Um, in my opinion, one of the worst consequences of the sky-high tuition rates in the rest of academia is that it has conditioned everybody that learning, serious academic study, it's trained them to think of it as an investment that only significant career and income advantages can justify, right? Think back to your college days. Think of all the courses you would have loved to take, but you didn't have room in your schedule to take them, right? There might have been whole majors that you would have pursued if you'd had the freedom just to pursue the freedom and the time, right, to pursue your interests. And of course, one reason perhaps you didn't do that is that there was no financial future in that other field of study that fascinated you, right? I know for me, one of the things that I would have loved to study more of in college was philosophy. Never really got the chance to study philosophy because I was doing other majors, right? I was already thinking towards my career and what I wanted to do with the rest of my life and focusing on that like was responsible and I was supposed to do, right? I wasn't meaning to be a professional philosopher. Um, but think about going back to school to pursue that line of study, whatever it was, like for me, philosophy. Not because you're switching careers, but because you just really want to learn. It seems kind of crazy, doesn't it? Like, like who could afford to get an extra degree just for fun? Like an extra undergraduate degree just for fun? At Signum, we believe that learning is one of the greatest hobbies you can have. I've already talked about this a bit. Learning, pursuing your passions, even when they're not connected to your job, is an incalculable enrichment to your life. Our academic programs have always been intended to meet whatever goals you have and to give you the opportunity to make them a reality within your actual life and means. Um, so, what that means is we we want to make it possible for you to study whether the learning itself is your hobby like for me I hope that I will someday have the opportunity to go and really dig into many of these philosophical traditions that I kind of know about but have never really had time to dig into. I would love to dig into those more. That would be hugely fun for me, as well as there are many other languages that I would love to learn. I've been learning Greek. I would love to learn Greek better and practice it more. There are many other languages that I would love to learn. Japanese. There's so many things I would love to learn. Um, and again, having a place where you have an opportunity to do that is really wonderful. Um, but in addition, there are other things that you're doing, perhaps even other hobbies that you have. For instance, maybe you are a creative writer, and but there are things that you want to learn in order to support the writing that you're doing, or another project that you want to study, or maybe there's just something you've been interested in. You have a kind of an academic idea. Maybe it's about Tolkien, maybe it's about something else that you've wanted the opportunity to pursue, to work out. Um, we want to give people the opportunity to do that. Our academic mastery program is designed to create a customized, in-depth program, as in-depth as you want it to be, and as prolonged or as short as you want it to be. Something that is tailored to your own interests and your own desires. Something that will provide you with the full academic resources that you would have at a university. Professors and teachers and who can work with you and help you to plan a course of study and to execute that course of study and really immerse yourself in this stuff that you want to learn. But to be able to do that again in a way that is tailored to what you want and to what you need, and not just some cookie cutter and enormously high priced degree program. That's our academic mastery program. And I think it's going to be it provides a really, really fun sort of new trajectory for our graduate program. Finally, I shouldn't neglect to mention our events program. I'm filming this from my hotel in Belgium, where I'm staying. I just had a Signum Moot this past weekend here in Belgium, in Leuven, Belgium, and that was so much fun getting to connect with folks who came in from around Europe to participate in this moot here this past weekend. If you've never attended one of our moots, you should. The experience of spending the day with your people, surrounded by folks who get your references and share your enthusiasm, is really wonderful. All of our moots are broadcast online, so you can enjoy them remotely, and many people do that and attend a bunch of them remotely. But I also encourage you to look for Signum events near you. I travel all over the world for these, so there's a good chance that there will be one not far away from you. Um, you see, it's our purpose at Signum to share our joy with you. That's why we exist. The joy that we all find in fantasy literature and Tolkien studies and languages. We've diversified our programs over the years because we know that people find joy in different ways and different areas. For some of you, intense academic study and scholarly training is what moves you. Though you've never had the chance to pursue it or found a program that matches your particular interests, we have a program for you, our graduate studies. For others, a chance to learn and engage in studies more casually with excellent teachers and a wonderful community will be the perfect place for you to live. We have a program for you, Space, which you guys are all sampling here today. For others, what you want is less about classwork and more about creativity and content. You love creativity and scholarship and writing and excellent video and audio and text that you can consume at your own pace. We have a program for you, the Collaboratory. And of course, I'm still doing my broadcasts and creating my own podcast materials as I've been doing for 20 years now. We still have that as well. In addition, we love to connect with our people through our live event program, as I've been doing here this very weekend. Signum has been working hard for many years to develop and expand and refine our programs so that they enable everybody to find a home, to rediscover joy in learning and discussion and creativity. We look forward to connecting with you at Signum. Thanks for joining me here today. I hope you enjoy the rest of the space showcase with Rob and Pilar and everybody else who's here today. And I look forward to connecting with you soon and seeing you around our Signum programs. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.